loan deal to ride out the storm in the hopes he'd have a home once it was all over.
After the pressure came so hard, your ears start to ring, you just turn loose, the door just slammed shut, and then you just plop, plop, everything just started going up.
And the deal paid off. Barely.
The ceiling in here was doing a roller coaster. It was up and down, up and down.
Luck and topography would spare his home from Dorian's worst.
I already cleaned up this house, so now it's just now getting materials, finding ways of what I could do to make a couple dollars to help patch things up until things start to fall in line. That's the Bahamian spirit, we're strong. I was born here, I ain't going nowhere. My family was here from 1700s. That's way back, and we still have the Archer title from then till now. So I ain't got nowhere to go.
The 25-foot storm surge that fell short of Linden's home on a hill devastated the neighborhood below. The Mud was a shanty town built on top of an old lake that flooded into a mountain of mud. It was the most vulnerable spot to ride out the storm, and it's where most of the people died.
You're coming into the ground zero of Hurricane Dorian.
Wayne Neely is a Bahamian meteorologist on island hurricanes. He's considered the foremost hurricane hunter in this part of the world. He's come to Marsh Harbor to hunt down Dorian's DNA.
As we walk through this, you hear the crunch. There's a stench here that smells
It's
like...
unmistakable, yes.
It smells like death.
Yes, it is. And it's from dead bodies. You also have dead animals, the dogs, the cats. There was no match because they couldn't go anywhere. This area was flooded, it was engulfed in water.
After 30 years of covering hundreds of storms, Wayne knew this hurricane would be different. Dorian's lethal storm surge charged several miles inland. So when the storm arrived, he felt as if he was carrying the weight of the nation on his shoulders, delivering a catastrophic forecast to his country, his friends, and his family.
I knew what comes along with that, a Category 5 hurricane, one of the strongest the region has ever seen, and the strongest the Bahamas has ever seen. And I knew that beneath that storm, beneath that image, there was going to be great devastation in my country. I knew then that the death toll is going to be significant.
Beneath the devastation and heartbreak, Wayne looks for Dorian's atmospheric paper trail. The intense tornado-like debris and nuclear bomb landscape is unmistakable. Cat 5 storm signatures are like no other. Wayne's post-hurricane analysis is invaluable. He carefully captures it all, tracing Dorian's steps and peeling away the layers.
There was very little wind shear occurring with the storm to weaken the storm. The waters were extremely warm. It was warmer than normal. I expected it to be a strong storm. I'd never expect it to be a Category 5 intensity storm. I don't think no one did.
Dorian would deliver a series of surprises leading up to landfall. First, it threaded a needle between mountainous Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, keeping its lethal core intact and over warm water for days. The eye would then recenter about 75 miles north, making forecast tracks even less reliable. Long-range computer models use satellite data, but that's limited and data poor. So when a hurricane is far from land, getting accurate tracks is harder, especially when there's been a significant shift in the hurricane. But there would be one more surprise: the weakest link in tropical forecasting, hurricane intensity. Dorian rapidly intensified from 150 miles an hour to an explosive 185 miles an hour in just 9 hours, a rate never seen before in an Atlantic storm this powerful. Those 185 mile per hour winds, equivalent to a 10-mile wide EF3 tornado. It bulldozed huge swaths of Abaco and Grand Bahama Islands. Dorian's wall of water reached miles beyond the mud. Wayne arrives at this Anglican church in Abaco, a designated evacuation center. Dorian rushed through these walls with a 5-foot storm surge.
it must have been terrifying for them. Imagine that for 30 hours battling the storm, battling the water up to waist level, and you also had the winds, the torrential rainfall along with that, so that must have been terror for them.
That torrential rain became another one of Dorian's deadly signatures. Estimates put rain totals over 35 inches. And the forecast would become a real nail-biter as the Bermuda high that was steering Dorian shifted east, collapsing the steering currents, slowing down Dorian. A dead man's walk across the Bahamas.
Even with all the technology that we have in play, with hurricane hunters flying all the time in and out of these hurricanes, truth is, they still can surprise us. They still can create this level of devastation like Hurricane Dorian did. But now there's an opportunity to change the rulebook itself and perhaps fly drones at high altitudes to get ahead of these hurricanes.
And forecasters need all the help they can get. While hurricane track forecasts are getting better each year, predicting the rate at how quickly major hurricanes can intensify is still not well understood. But there's plenty of data that shows big storms are becoming more frequent. 2019 is the fourth consecutive year a Category 5 hurricane has formed in the Atlantic Basin. That's never happened since records began in 1851. Dorian tied the hurricane of 1935 as the strongest landfalling hurricane in this part of the world. And there's no record of a Category 5 hurricane lashing a landmass for nearly 24 hours like Dorian. Forecasters would like to track hurricanes in real time to provide more accurate data on steering patterns. Such continuous testing of the atmosphere could detect the tiniest of wobbles that could determine who needs to evacuate and when.
We cannot lift the Bahamas up and take it elsewhere. All indications are the hurricanes will become more frequent, and some cases argue that it will become more intense. And Dorian is actually showing that these hurricanes are becoming stronger and more frequent. And it's us as meteorologists to pay close attention to climate change.
Island living after Dorian is far from the perfect postcard these islands once represented. Hurricane survivors must adapt and change themselves if they still want their ticket to paradise. Now, tough questions about sustainable island living have moved to the front burner. The Bahamian coat of arms, perhaps more poignant than ever before, charging to move forward, upward, onward, together. Even after the devil storms into town. For MyRadar, I'm Chief Digital Meteorologist Leslie Hudson in the Bahamas.
Hey there, I'm meteorologist Mike Linden for MyRadar. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Don't forget to click the notification bell. That way you always know whenever we drop a new video or whenever we go live. Now, the 2019 hurricane season is well underway, but we wanted to take a look back at one of the most powerful storms on record in the Atlantic, Category 5 Hurricane Dorian. Let's get into it. We begin on August 27th. When Dorian had already strengthened to a tropical storm near the Lesser Antilles, where Dorian briefly made landfall in St. Lucia. At this time, National Hurricane Center meteorologists expected the storm to come very close to the island of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. Dorian had other plans as the storm missed both islands. The very next day, Dorian strengthened to a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained winds at 74 miles per hour. By missing both islands, Dorian had nothing but warm, open ocean ahead of it. On August 30th, the eye of Dorian began to form, a sure sign of strengthening. Dorian was a Category 3 by the afternoon. By September 1st, Dorian had become a Category 5 hurricane, with the Bahamas in the line of fire. That same day, NHC meteorologists found 180 mile-per-hour sustained winds within Dorian, as well as a minimum pressure of 913 millibars, making Dorian the strongest hurricane in modern record-keeping to impact the Bahamas. Later that day, Hurricane Dorian made landfall on Great Abaco Island in the Bahamas with sustained winds at 185 miles per hour. Category 5, by the way, is anything above 157. Again, Dorian at 185 at this time. Wind gusts at 220 miles per hour and a central pressure of 911 millibars. With these readings, Dorian stamped its spot in history, tying the Labor Day hurricane of 1935 for the strongest landfalling Atlantic hurricane ever. Needless to say, Dorian was not kind to Great Abaco Island and to Grand Bahama. The massive storm began to slow down considerably to about 1 mile per hour, if not totally stationary at times. Now, at this time, the storm was seemingly staring at the eastern coast of Florida while lashing the Bahamas for upwards of 36 hours. By September 3rd, Dorian began to move north, but it was far too late for the northwestern Bahamas. The death toll is still climbing, and thousands of people are still missing as the powerful storm brought incredible storm surge as high as 20 to 25 feet in some spots. Damage costs have already surpassed $7 billion in the Bahamas. Over the next few days, Dorian weakened significantly as it began to pick up speed along the eastern coast of Florida and bringing significant rainfall to South Carolina as a Category 3 hurricane. On Friday, September 6th at 8:35 in the morning, Dorian made landfall over Cape Hatteras, North Carolina.
And live right now on MyRadar, we are tracking Tropical Storm Cristobal. Big question is, where is it headed over the next 5 days? Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for day 3 of navigating the storm right here on MyRadar. I'm Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson. I am joined by meteorologist Stefanie Lauber to my left and also meteorologist Mike Linden. It has been a busy couple of days, you guys.
Definitely. Very active. We've been so busy in, day 3 now into hurricane
Yes,
season?
yeah.
Oh boy.
Wild stuff. And if you're new to MyRadar, be sure to get social with us. We're everywhere nowadays. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's right there at the bottom of the screen. Follow us and you'll know everything that's going on.
Yeah. And we are also on YouTube. If you're not already a subscriber, now's a great time. You can hit the notification bell and you'll know anytime we drop a new video.
And right now we want to get updated on everybody on what's going on with Cristobal. Now, it actually made landfall earlier today in Mexico, in Ciudad del Carmen. So it's actually inland right now. And as we look at it here on the infrared, we can still see a big burst of energy that's still forming over parts of Mexico and over the Bay of Campeche. What's going to be interesting here over the next couple of days is expected to stay inland. So as long as it's inland, it's cut off from its food source. So it will downgrade to a tropical depression. Will it hold together? That is the big question that we're unsure of. The National Hurricane Center does think that it's going to go ahead and keep its tropical characteristics and re-emerge into the Gulf of Mexico in a couple of days. Now, the official path from the National Hurricane Center still takes it into the central Gulf. That's where a lot of question is going to be going on. How warm the sea surface temperatures are there. They are warm. They're in the low 80s. That's plenty of energy to get that system going. Most of the intensity forecasts keep this below a hurricane. So the official forecast from the Hurricane Center keeps it at tropical storm strength and a possible landfall by Saturday into Sunday and Monday in Louisiana. So we've got to keep an eye on that over the next 5 days, you guys, and see how this all plays out. But of course, folks that are along the Texas coast all the way over to the Gulf coastern states need to keep an eye on this, because the winds, the tropical storm force winds, are expected to start impacting that area of the country as soon as Sunday night. So we'll start to see the gusty conditions across parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, maybe a little bit of extreme western Florida panhandle. And then as we head in time, we'll see that continue to ramp up if this continues on this trend. And then this would be a big rainmaker, of course, for the Gulf Coast and the southeastern U.S. So lots of things to keep an eye on. And of course, over the next couple of days, really interested to see how well it holds together while it's interacting with the land of Mexico.
Yeah, it's going to be a real tricky ride up the Yucatan Peninsula here as we go into the next 24 hours to see what it does when it reemerges into the Gulf of Mexico. But either way, that's going to mean rough seas for folks along the Gulf Coast of the U.S., no matter what happens over the next couple of days. So we're definitely going to have to sit and watch here. But the National Hurricane Center has predicted this would be an above average season. And if there's any proof in the pudding, hey, here we are, and we're on our third named storm. So what they're saying in the forecast so far is they expect to have between 13 and 19 named storms, of which 6 to 10 of those would be hurricanes. And in that, we would see between 3 and 6 major hurricanes. So that's where the early projections are so far.
And all along, we've been telling you hurricanes are dangerous and why you need to protect yourselves from them. But if you're staying at home, well, that's going to be your biggest asset, really, to keep you protected from what's going on outside. But for a hurricane, where you are could be your biggest target. And FLASH, the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, or for Strengthening Homes rather, Safe Homes rather, they have released a list of DIY inspections and things to keep you and your loved ones safe while you weather the storm.
When it comes to the destructive power of Mother Nature, hurricanes rank high on the list. Normally about 300 miles wide, these gigantic heat engines are capable of producing wind speeds above 157 miles per hour, good enough to hit Category 5 status and cause catastrophic damage to your home.
The details really matter. Getting each part right in the building is essential, because 1 week length really can mean the end of serviceability for that structure until some major repairs are completed. For most people, this is the single largest asset they're going to buy in their lives, and unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily mean that that people will spend the time they need thinking about how that system is going to hold up in an extreme wind event.
Before the storm arrives at your doorstep, experts say preparation well ahead of time is the key to protecting yourself and your family.
People tend to look at the forecast. This is something coming out of the Hurricane Center called anchoring, where they'll look 3 or 4 days in advance and make the decision then. And the point there is that even with the 4 Category 5 storms that have hit the continental United States, all 4 of those were a tropical system 3 to 4 days prior.
That's Leslie Chapman Henderson, the president and CEO of FLASH, the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes. This year, FLASH is launching their Hurricane Strong at Home program to help people stay safe with simple DIY tips to help make their homes hurricane strong.
We have 14 online hurricane hacks in English and Spanish. And these are all things you can do yourself. What we want people to do is to start with a do-it-yourself inspection. use that at-home time to get this done so that you don't have to worry once the storms are formed and the watches and the warnings go up.
Despite improvements to building codes over the years, some of the strongest storms have found a way to break through. Experts say it's often the little things that can often lead to the biggest problems.
The wind will find the weakest point. So it's just like the human body. You know, you have your hand, it connects to your wrist, which connects to your arm. If there's a weak point anywhere in that chain and you pull on it, you're going to have some issues. And so it only takes one spot of not taking care of it that can cause really big issues.
The weakest point in the chain? Smith says it's the garage door, usually the largest opening on the exterior of a home. If not reinforced,
then wind can push into the house, and that creates what we call the balloon effect. And basically, it increases the pressure inside your home and can push up components from the inside. So you can actually increase the pull on your roof by kind of blowing up the inside and then pushing the roof off from the inside, in addition to the hurricane itself on the outside pulling it off. And so that can cause really big issues.
Identifying the weak points and how to address them is Smith's main focus. Aside from the garage door, he says one of the most glaring weak points is easy to spot. All you have to do is look up.
If you're outside your house and you're facing the wall of your house and you look up, that little strip of ceiling between the wall and the edge of the roof where the gutters are, that's your soffit. And so those usually have little holes in them, which are fantastic, especially in places like Florida where it's very hot, for ventilation. So that keeps your roof, attic, staying a little cooler. It helps with energy efficiency and things like that. The problem is that during a hurricane, that can be the exact opposite of what you want.
We always like to call them the Achilles heel of the roof because they blow in. Unfortunately, when the wind and wind-driven rain come and strike the side of your house, the water will run up, push in your soffit, get inside your roof.
Remember those hurricane hacks from earlier? Well, Flash has a way to strengthen your soffits using something as simple as a tube of caulk.
One of the things you can do DIY, super easy to strengthen that soffit, is to take caulking and run it along the interface where that soffit meets the wall. So right at that 90-degree point where the two join, if you run caulking there, it can seal that up so that the water can't get pushed up into the attic, and it also anchors that a little bit more into the wall so it can help with some wind resistance if that wind wants to come in and try to push the soffit up into the attic.
Take it from the experts. Do a DIY inspection now instead of waiting for the storm to come your way.
Once you go through that do-it-yourself inspection, the result of it is basically a recipe. It's your recipe for how to be hurricane strong.
From Orlando, Florida, Mike Linden, MyRadar.
Oh, that's not supposed to be down there.
Some awesome information there, and if you want to get that whole list of what to do with a DIY inspection, go to flash.org, that's FLASH.org/hurricane-strong, and you will find all of the information there. Some really, really useful tips. I had to learn what a soffit even was when I did this story, so really, really interesting stuff to keep you and your family safe. But we're not done keeping you and your family safe, because it's not only what's inside that can damage your home, it's what's outside of it as well. So check this out for some useful tips of what you have to do to keep yourself safe.
Keeping you and your family safe during a hurricane is obviously number one. It is very important, but that actually begins outside of your home. So before you board up or before you evacuate and head out of town, be sure to take care of some things outside before you do that. That includes bringing in anything that could become airborne inside your home. Patio furniture, a table, chairs, a grill, any toys that your kids may have out on the lawn, even light plastic ones, can easily become airborne and damage your home and others. And if you have a trampoline, it is best to disassemble that and bring that inside as well, because if that becomes airborne, that can cause some pretty major damage to your home and to others. And that's a pretty important point as well. While it is important for you to take care of those tasks, be sure to ask your neighbors to do the same as well. Stay safe this season.
The first thing I would do is reboot the IFB computer.
Yep.
We should test that right after this before you get up. There we go.
And when the power goes out in a storm, your food, of course, is something you're worried about. Your freezer, your refrigerator items, you don't want them to defrost and go bad, especially if you spent money on groceries.
Right.
And so one way to get past that, we've got a clever hack for you, and it involves putting some water in your freezer to test it out. Have a look.
During a hurricane, power outages are always to be expected. This, of course, is bad news for the food in your refrigerator. Here's a cool tip to help you figure out if your freezer items have begun to defrost. Grab any transparent container that is freezer safe and has a secure lid. You can use a water bottle, a shaker cup, a mason jar, whatever fits best in your freezer and has a little bit of height to it. Fill it about halfway with water, close the lid tightly, and then lay on its side to freeze. Then, once it's frozen, keep it in your freezer right side up. If the power goes out and your frozen items begin to defrost, that vertical column of ice will begin to melt and begin to pool at the base of your container. Even if the power is restored and the water refreezes before you're able to check, any additional ice will be covering the bottom, and it'll be a telltale sign that your icebox may have lost its chill.
So something else I found out when I was trying out this little experiment is that it works a lot better when you're using a container that has a rigid side. We use the water bottle, just a regular 16.9 ounce water bottle, and because the sides were somewhat flexible, it was kind of hard to see inside. And something else you can do if it's tough to see is you can add a few drops of food coloring, and
That's a
it
good
just
idea.
makes it so much more easier.
Yes.
I love that tip. I hadn't known that before you had showed us that. That's awesome. I'm totally doing that this year.
It's putting me at ease because, you know, we buy a lot of food. My husband eats a lot of food, so, you know, I don't want all that to go to waste. It's great news.
And it's good if you have kids because kids are always doing this when you lose power. Hey mom, is it going back? So it's a quick way for you to quickly open the refrigerator and close it and the freezer and hopefully not spoil the food.
Yeah,
so.
great.
Great tips there, you guys. And if people have questions that they want to ask us, we've got some answers. We got a couple yesterday. We've been trying to get you guys to go ahead and send us your questions. We're going to be answering questions live Friday. The whole show is going to be answering your questions on hurricanes, tropical systems, climate change, whatever it is you want to go. If it's weather related and has to do with hurricane season, we're going to answer it. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can email us, and here's the address. It's myradarwx@myradar.com. Or you can send us a question right now. We're live across all our platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're checking those all the time, and that's where we got a couple questions yesterday. But you want to get them to us either today or tomorrow so we have time to put them in the system. It'll be too late to show your name and who you are if you try and send it to us on Friday. So try and get it to us either today or tomorrow, and we would love to answer those questions.
Really cool questions. Of course, we're going to get as many as we can done on Friday, but we're trying to feature some early. We've got a question we'll answer live right now. It comes from Jonathan and Jade, and they're asking, what's the difference between a tropical cyclone and a tropical storm? Now that's a toughie. All this vernacular tends to get people confused, and with this, you know, we're here to break it down for you with some easy definitions.
Go ahead.
Well, with a tropical cyclone, it's more of a blanket term. Tropical cyclone just means the low pressure system that's not associated with a cold front. It's what you would call warm core. But to get through all that technicality, just about anything you'll see So that's all that means, but it can be really confusing for some folks.
I was going to say, it can be a little confusing because they're so similar, but when it comes to weather, there are specifics and things you really need to pay attention to.
And we have the definitions on the screen if people want to know what an exact term is. But another thing is cyclones are called cyclones in different parts of the world. Yeah. So it even gets more confusing if you have family that lives in the Pacific or maybe Australia. They call them whirlybirds down there sometimes as nicknames. So it gets very confusing, but as Stefanie mentioned, the blanket term is cyclone. So when we mentioned tropical cyclones, we're using that as a blanket to either talk about a tropical storm, a hurricane, some type of organized system that has has at least 38 mile per hour or 38 mile per hour winds and is organized and has a closed low. So we hope that it answers the question. Great question.
Yes.
And we've got several more that we're going to be answering on Friday.
Especially when we're dealing right now with Cristobal, which started as a Pacific storm that became an Atlantic storm.
That's been so confusing, you know. And in parts of the Pacific, once you pass that international date line, things get a little hairy because west of that, towards Asia, you've got typhoons. And then when you're east of that, like places like Hawaii and all that, you're dealing with hurricanes still. So there are different kinds of criteria, like you were saying, down in Australia, where just about everything is a cyclone or a severe cyclone. You know, it gets hairy.
And the names are all different all across the world as well.
Yes. It's definitely something that gets a little bit hairy. But you know, it's something that we're here to do. We're helping you stay in the know of what's going on with all of these storms and what you need to do to take action. That's why we're here, and that's why we're inviting all those questions on Friday so that we can get them answered.
Now, coming up tomorrow on MyRadar's Navigating the Storm, we are talking to MyRadar storm chaser Aaron Jajak. We're talking to him live right here at noon. I mean, he's out on the road. We were talking to him earlier today. He's out on the road storm chasing today, and we've got him coming up tomorrow. We're going to talk to him about his experiences storm chasing, what it was like following Hurricane Dorian as it worked its way up along the eastern seaboard last year. So we're really excited for that. Again, that's right here on MyRadar, coming up tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time.
And depending on what Cristobal does, Aaron may be chasing that next week. We don't know. We'll see what happens. So let's take another look at Cristobal. There's not going to be a lot of changes, you guys, over the next couple of days. It is over land. It's in Mexico right now. So we expect this to weaken a bit as we head through the next 24 to 36 hours. And it's going to be interacting with the land, the friction there. But there is some guidance here that indicates the larger circulation that's over Mexico and Central America is going to help recurve this back over into the Bay of Campeche and into the Gulf of Mexico by Friday or Friday night. So don't expect that to get back over water until sometime Friday or Friday night. No big changes today or tomorrow in the forecast. Once it gets into the Gulf, that's where things are going to get interesting and see how much energy it's got left, how much of that energy it's going to tap into the sea surface temperatures there, which again are in the low 80s. That is prime time brewing ingredients for tropical cyclones. Right now, the National Hurricane Center keeping this as a tropical storm and moving towards the Gulf Coast in a general direction of Louisiana by Sunday or into Monday. Impacts along the coastal areas of Louisiana should start to be felt sometime on Sunday night and into Monday. And then this would move inland, of course, losing tropical characteristics soon after that and potentially becoming a massive flood and rainmaker for the southeastern part of the United States. So the National Hurricane Center in their key messaging is already saying, make sure if you live in this area, pretty much from Texas over to the Florida Panhandle, you need to start getting those preps, get everything in place. This weekend is now the time to do that. So you're not rushed to the store. Right now it's still tax-free holiday for many states around the U.S. So get your goods now, because I think most of the states in the United States end June 4th, which will be tomorrow. So you want to get your generators, your kerosenes, your batteries, get all that locked up, and you can save some money as well.
Yep, great tips. And of course, who's not going to take advantage of the tax-free weekend? It's a great opportunity to get that taken care of.
Save a considerable amount of money, especially when you're packing your hurricane kit, as Stefanie talked about the other day. I mean, there's a lot that can go in there. You don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, and so the key will be to hurry up and wait with the need to pay attention to this. We're going to go through the weekend, and that's when we'll really need to keep our eyes on this and then know what action to take. But again, having that plan early makes that decision
big time
very simple.
Yes.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We're going to wrap up this broadcast for today. Again, a reminder that tomorrow, as Mike mentioned, Aaron Jajak will be live with us, and he'll also be talking about his top hurricane chasing stories. That guy, I want to live in his car with him for like a week. He's so cool. We can't wait to get him on the show tomorrow. And again, you can catch us across all social media platforms. We'll be broadcasting live at noon. On behalf of Stefanie, Lauber, and meteorologist Mike Linden, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us again today. We hope you have some questions. Put them in the comments. We will answer them live for you on Friday. Have a great afternoon, everybody.